All right, good day, hi, and welcome. Okay, okay. Here we go again. Um, I got to be careful how I do videos on YouTube, obviously, because of the censorship and all that. But my goal is to not pick a side. The problem is you have all these hyper partisans that are for or against. So, for example, if I give Trump praise, the pro-Trump people like it. Obviously, the anti-Trump people don't. If I give Trump criticism, the pro-Trump people don't like it, and the anti-people do. Right? So, but all I care about is telling you the truth and kind of like, okay, here, here's all like almost everything you hear, and this is what makes research so hard. Is everything has a political spin on it from like there's no just here's the news and away you go. Everybody has a political spin. I'm guilty, I'm not lost on the idea either. But my main goal is to kind of not sit the fence, but to look at all sides and say, okay, well, this is coming at you and this is coming at you. Do what you will. And one of the things I've been screaming about since Trump has taken office the second time around is the farmers. And guys, if don't listen to me, listen to them. Now these guys have been hammered for years. So Donald Trump has got these new bills that are coming out, which is going to focus us into deteriorating the relationship between Canada and the United States. The reason being is Trump has no, uh, uh, he does not want to make a deal. All these conservatives out there that, why can't we make a deal with Trump? It's just Carney's incompetent, blah, blah, blah. And it's not I'm defending Kearney. I'm not defending the man. The man understands and he's told you in plain English. So has Trump. There is no deal to be made. There's no deal that will ever be good enough for Donald Trump. Why? Because he does not want a deal. He wants to destroy Canada. That's as simple as that. He wants to destroy us economically so we could do like a basically a hostile takeover. That's what he wants. That's what the United States needs. Why? Because we have everything here. Again, we are the most resource rich country in the world. Maybe not in any one thing, but overall, you're never going to. Well, there's something. Okay, we have 20% of the world's fresh water. Okay, check. We're number one in that. I thought we were like the fourth largest potash supplier in the world. We'll be talking about potash. No, we're the number one. It's us, Russia, and then I think China and Venezuela. It's in some order like that. But some sources say we're the number one. We have the biggest potash. Some say it's Russia. Some say it's China. Some say it's well, I know nobody says it's Venezuela. So it's between us three uh, that are the heavy hitters. Um, China buys potash from us as well, and a lot. But the United States buys the majority. So we've pretty much set up the potash mine just to favor the Americans. And 80% of the fertilizer in the United States comes from Canada. And I cannot stress this enough. Trump does not seem to care that he's attacking the food supply. He's doing it on purpose. Again, if you could be a fly on the wall with him and Bill Gates when they were, right after Trump gets into office, he has a meeting with Bill Gates, right? I wonder what they were talking about. I guess it was what it looks like in practice is that we're going to bankrupt all the farmers. Just be ready to buy them up. So China doesn't. That's my guess. That's my guess. My best speculation, because that's exactly what's happening. you know, that's exactly what's happening. Uh, Trump is out there trying to make the spin that, oh, the reason why the farmers need a bailout now is because Joe Biden screwed this, and Joe Biden did. Joe Biden, yeah, of course, Joe Biden hates Americans. There's no doubt about that, and he hates, everybody. Everybody in Washington hates rural people. There's like, it's the same here. Ottawa, like in Ottawa, they hate the flyover country. They hate people like me with an extreme passion. We're just a bunch of hillbilly rednecks, right? Just you guys just fuck off and die already. That's the way they think of us. Um, there's no doubt about that. But the thing is that if you listen to the Arkansas farmers, I was listening to some of them. There was a video on BitChute, and it was just like they're just like explaining it in plain English. This is what's been happening to us since the Farm Aid bill came out under Bill Clinton, and it's just been basically these tycoon industries that squeeze the margin so high that farmers have no chance. And why? Because you don't have supply management, in most areas of the country, right? Because that'd be socialism. I'm fucking sick and tired of that. It's like you have to look at everything with nuance. Canada, we have different farming problems, but again, it's been always the same thing. Capitalism. We need to basically sell more houses to the point where with all the people that could possibly buy houses in your country buy the houses. Now we need to flood in third worlders and buy them houses. You know what I mean? Just to keep the banking going. Where are we going to build the houses? Oh, let's build it on the fucking Greenbelt. The most lush farmland in Canada and possibly in the world. And we need to expand in there. It's like, no, you don't. How about we just shut the fucking immigration off? That'll solve the problem. You know what I mean? Like, once you destroy that land, you can't get it back, right? But the Arkansas farmers are talking about like, look, like all the farm equipment is, it's basically all monopolies, right? This is why I'm not a free market capitalist, because that's all it leads to is these too big to fail monopolies, and that's why they can't fail is because they're they keep getting bailouts. So you bail them out, and meanwhile they gouge the farmer, right? They set the prices of what they're going to buy at, not what you can sell it to them at. Say, no, look, I need to make a profit. My farm. Look, if at the current prices, look, I need to make $17 a bushel. You want to pay me 10? You know what I mean? And that's the way the American system is, though. It's the worst. The worst of it. Look, communism doesn't work. We all agree on that. It doesn't work on paper. It doesn't work in real life. All it does is create shortages and people die, right? And then when the government fails, they put people up against the wall and shoot them and say it was their fault. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's their fault that they're starving. Let's shoot them. Yeah, welcome to Stalinism or Maoism, right? But look, capital. I'll quote Churchill as much on this as possible. What he said about democracy. It's the worst form of government ever, but unfortunately, it's the best one we got. Well, capitalism is kind of the same, right? It has you want to have as much free market capitalism in your country as possible. But when you're to the point where it's just about GDP numbers and my capitalism and my free market, my libertarianism, to the point where it's like, well, they just need to compete more. They need to be more competitive. Well, they're so competitive that they've lowered the price that you're putting them out of business. And food is critical infrastructure. It should be a national security thing to protect your farmers. And if that requires debatable supply management, sure, fine, do that. You can, work out that, but protect your farmers. Trump has no inclination of doing this. No president ever has. No president ever will. And that is why you're headed towards a Holodomor 2.0. It's going to be a Holodomor light, but you are going to have people by probably February starving to death in the United States because it won't matter how much money they have in their pocket. It won't matter what the inflation numbers are. There just won't be any food on the shelf because you're going to run out. And you can't just, that's it. Turn out more crops this week. No, you get 16 weeks to grow an average crop, edible crop. That's it, right? And you pick it, and whatever you get is what you get. If you don't get those, look, more information has come to me, let's start off with how you started 2025. You started 2025 with the Eastern Seaboard farmers that got hit in the hurricanes, Hurricane Helene and whatever. You have something like 1.5, 1.6 million farms in the United States that are small business. The rest is all giant agro, right? And on those Eastern Seaboard farms, a lot of topsoil was taken away by the storm. So the farms that are even able to open up again, that weren't completely destroyed in the storm, never mind those. Those ones are down and out. They're not coming back ever again. The farmers there are still saying it's going to take 2 to 4 years to replace this, fully replace the topsoil. So you already have a shortage to begin with on the Eastern Seaboard, right? Which will already raise food prices. Yes, food prices are going up in the United States. Yes, it's due. The tariffs are part of it, but it's like there's more to it than just the tariffs. Maybe Trump is not realizing this. Okay, well, look, I'm looking at the tariffs and the money on it. It's not really that much coming from the tariffs. No, it's coming from the shortages. Then the ice raids. Now, I'm all for the ice raids. I am. But the ice raids, really, all those things are designed to do is to scare people into self-deporting, because the cost to actually get rid of 40 million people and the logistics is like it's almost impossible, right? It's possible, but it's almost impossible. So the idea is to get people to just fuck off and go, right? Problem is you don't start with the farmhands. You give them amnesty, or you say, okay, look, if you're working on a farm that's critical infrastructure, you need to feed the people. You're going to get say a 2-year visa. Okay, so you can stay for 2 years. After that, it'll be case by case, and we're going to wean you out over the next, say, 10 years or 5 years or whatever it takes. And you can take welfare recipients, put them on the farms, get them picking the food. Yes, they'll do it. Yes, there are people that are willing to do it. Yes, the white people will pick the food. You just have to pay people fair wages. Other than like all these other people are getting third world wages, right? So, but that'll raise the price of food. It's going to go up no matter what. I'd rather it go up by paying people that could look, all these third worlders that are working in the and foreign workers working in the fast food industry. They can't afford to eat there. You know what I mean? If you're paid a wage where, like, if you work at Walmart, you can't afford to shop at Walmart. It's too expensive because they don't pay you enough. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you're going to pay people. This idea of the capitalists ever paying somebody a fair wage. This is what has turned people against conservatism, which if you were a real conservative, you would understand you have to pay people a living wage so they can raise families, so they can do that. So you don't have to bring in all this foreign labor, which is basically a scam. We don't need it. It's like, yeah, but our GDP numbers aren't going to grow because everybody's got a job. Yeah, that's what you want. Like, who cares if you're. We had this under Stephen Harper where, okay, yes, there was foreign workers coming in, but they were high skilled workers, and not only that, they like there wasn't so many of them that like they weren't being brought in to spike the GDP numbers. Hence why under Stephen Harper we had 7 years of growth, even though it was small growth. It wasn't anything impressive, but it was stable. And we'd see like, okay, 2,000 jobs lost this week, gained 4,000. Like that kind of really, really close numbers or whatever. Oh, okay, we lost 25,000 jobs under the seasonal. Like right now, you're probably going to see a bit of a job spike because we're getting close to Christmas. And then after Christmas, you got this mass layoffs, drop because all the seasonal Christmas people, gift hands or whatever, they're all done for that little bit, and then everything stabilizes again until about spring, summer, when you start to get your summer seasonal workers coming in, right? And the tourism and all that. But all that stuff is getting hit big time, right? So you started off with that. Okay, now you've got all these people that couldn't pick crops, so that led to shortages right away. Food rotting on the vine, so to speak. Just nobody there to pick, not enough people to pick it. So that's already a shortage. Never mind, which is going to increase the price of food. Okay, so that said, how much of that is going to factor in to the food shortage? I don't know. Then the big one, input costs, and this is what the farmers are complaining about the most, is the input cost. Because of the giant agro, their goal is to, basically, they want everything centralized power, right? All our globalists are like that. Trump is no different. Carney's believes in centralized power. Macron believes in it. Starmer believes in it. Putin believes in it. Xi believes in it. Trump believes it. Like they're all the same, right? And they believe that everything should be government owned, right? They don't believe in property value or property rights. They don't believe that. And the thing is that once you start getting these monopolies, these giant agro companies, what happens is that, yeah, but the farms, when they lose money, they get a bailout. They get a subsidy. Okay. Now, the way that one farmer, I think, summed it up best. He goes, we don't get that money. We get that money. It goes in our hand and we pass it to the to our debtor, right to the people we so because of the Trump tariffs, one guy, there's just one farm. He goes, look, normally you make a profit, but we're losing like $300-400 per acre. Operating at that much of a loss. That's a dead farm. That farm's gone. Like so. Even if you get the bailout, you still you're done. You know what I mean? Like you'll never be able to pay that back. And you do this season one this year. Do it season two. Like there's going to be no bailout farming package that's going to save these farms. So how many farms went under this year? I don't know. We can't get that number because everything's shut down. In the States, so they make sure you can't see these numbers because they don't want you to see how bad it actually is. But what I'm telling you is that you could survive inflation. You could survive a lot of the bullshit that's going on, but you can't survive more than a month without food. You know what I mean? Like it's like 3 minutes without air, you die. The average person dies. 3 days without water, the average person dies. 3 weeks without food, the average person will die. Some people live longer, but after something like 2 days, people start to think about cannibalism, and within 30 days, most people will act on cannibalism. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's create food shortages in the United States. That's going to work out really well. And Canada cannot feed 380 to 400 million people. We don't have enough food to do that. We'd wipe ourselves out. Maybe that's Trump's plan. It's like, oh yeah, we'll get the Canadians to use their generosity to give us all their food, and then they'll die too, and then we'll just take over the Canada. But that's what it's about: is taking over Canada for sure. All these new laws, right? This is why, like Trump, he fucked himself over by making an agreement with Carney that they'll wait till they renegotiate Kuzma. And again, Carney, all he has to do, he has the upper hand here. All he has to do is just say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to accept any of Trump's policy terms right now, because if we do, when we go to negotiate Kuzma next year, it'll be considered a part of it right away, and we won't be able to do anything about it. So it's like, no, we'll just do that. So Trump has picked up that's what Carney's doing. He's kind of figured out, it's like, oh, this guy's fucking playing me. It's like, Carney is a little bit smarter than Trump. Not a rating endorsement for Carney. It's just he's a sneakier guy and he understands numbers better. And he's definitely understands an economy much better than a game show. Like the bankster is going to understand the economy better than the game show host. And he's probably, basically, Mark Carney, even though he got fired from Stephen Harper, he basically served under the world's #1 economist. You know what I mean? I believe, he was Stephen Harper was one of the top economists around the world at one point. Again, I know it sounds like I'm giving the man like such a, Stephen Harper is such a hero. He's not. It's just that the guy was qualified. He was very qualified, whether you liked him or you didn't like him. And that's the way I do it on this channel. It's like, it's not a matter I like the guy or don't like the guy. This is who you're dealing with. Kind of like Putin, probably the most successful mob boss that's ever existed, next to Xi Jinping, right? Yeah, that's why I say, when you look at the world, don't look at them, this is the good guy, this is the bad guy. Look at it. This mob boss is fighting with that mob boss. Carney's a mob boss. Trump's a mob boss. Xi's a mob boss. Putin's a mob boss. Zelensky's a mob boss. They're all mob bosses fighting. That's not a figure of speech. That's what they are. They're just fighting for their fucking mob. What was the saying? Low IQ criminals rob banks. High IQ criminals own banks. It was something like that. I remember hearing something like that. And I'm like, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, like if you're the smartest guy in the room, you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? If you walk into a room and you're the smartest guy, you're not playing the game right. But anyway, yeah. So Trump has figured this out. So he's figuring Carney out. That Carney knows how to like dodge, evade, and kind of run away and run around and stall and stuff like that when it comes to Trump, right? But Trump, he's bombastic, he's egotistical, everything, but he's not a stupid man. I will say a lot of bad things about Trump, judging him on what he's doing, not what he's saying. He's a phenomenal speaker. There's no doubt about that. He's a lot like Obama, very charismatic. But I think the charisma chart, Trump is probably the most charismatic person you could possibly ever meet if you don't know who he is. Well, right now it would be impossible not to know who he is. He's going to be one of the most talked about figures in history for like hundreds of years to come, just because of the times we're living in. Like you think of all the leaders that have come before. It's only when somebody does something significant, good or bad, that they make it into the history books, right? History is written about radicals, not normal people. But Trump basically has figured out that Carney is flying rings around him, like I've been saying since pretty much they both taken power, right? It's like Carney got dropped into the deep end of an economy that, good, bad, gamble is what the Canadian economy is, bouncing along like a super ball down the road. GDP numbers up, GDP numbers down. We are not in a recession, as bad as things are, but we do have the everything crisis. Well, the Americans have the everything crisis. The British have the everything. The entire West is run by the same banksters. The entire like the IMF, the the SWIFT system, all it's all the petrodollar. It's all encompassing of the entire Western Hemisphere of influence, right? So, the problems this is why the problems in Greece, Spain, Italy, Germany, France, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States are so similar because it's coming from the same mobsters, right? They're all in on it, right? So it's just to degrees. It's like I said back in 2012 that the New World Order chair, if you want to call it that, is a bloody chair to sit in, and we're at the point where even Catherine Austin Fitz was talking about that. Goes, it looks like the world elites are about to try to kill each other, and it's what's referred to as the madness of kings. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're seing, right? Where it's like every king seems like they're a friend to each other, but they're secretly trying to have a cheeseburger, and it's laced with arsenic or something. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, they're just trying to kill each other. Like, here, go sit in this chair, and there's like a poison spike in the chair or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's what they're doing to each other. And the problem is us little bastards get caught in the crossfire. So Trump has figured out that, okay, if I wait till next year, right? Carney's just going to kick the Kuzma negotiations down the road. There'll be a negotiation forever. It'll never get settled. All the conservatives in Canada say, "Oh, see, Carney's incompetent. Why everybody else is getting a deal? Why can't we get a deal?" Well, there's no deal to be made. Number one, and this is Trump's own words. It's really no. I want to take over Canada. I want their resources. They're going to give it to me. I'll attack them economically first. I will destroy their economy, and if that doesn't work, well, then we're going to go to war. That's pretty much what Trump is telling you. Maybe not quite that plain language, but just listen to the man. The man's calling us an enemy. The guy's calling us a parasite. The guy's calling us, all that rhetoric that you always see before the Americans go to war with somebody. This is what, and I want to make another update because every time I see these, videos about Canada and the United States going to war. If Canada and Mexico teamed up and went to war, and then I go read the comments, it's all cheerleader stuff, right? And I'm just like, okay, number one, nobody understands how devastating that would have global rippling effects. And the end result, I've war gamed it as much as I can. And no, Canada wins the war, but we only have about 4 million people left at the end of the war. And you lose about 150 million Americans in various different ways. And that's just a war between Canada and the United States. And it will drag on for about 30 years. Yeah, it'll be that fucking bad. And the West, and then of course you'll have about 500 million Africans starving to death because all the food aid that would have went to them is no longer going to be available. But that's already going to happen anyway, right? Europe will be in shambles. Everybody will be in shambles. Just the black swan that would create. And it's yeah, but we have F-35s and our military is 1 million people. doesn't mean anything. It means fuck all. It doesn't mean anything. Does not mean anything. Uh, or our equipment, oh, the Canadian military is so small, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't mean anything. It means fuck all. Ukraine was supposed to fall in 3 weeks. How's that going? That was 4 years ago. It was almost 4 years ago. It doesn't work like that. Oh, Vietnam, yeah, we're technologically superior to Vietnam. Yeah, you couldn't beat them. Afghanistan. If the United States can't take fucking Afghanistan, they can't take Canada. You know what I mean? I'm not saying we wouldn't get our asses kicked in a lot of ways, but what I'm saying is it would be irregular warfare. It would be fifth dimensional warfare combined with the worst guerrilla tactics. The battlefield, the way I thought about it, it's like the battlefield would change so quickly. Look, the Ukraine is basically changed warfare forever, right? It's a new era of warfare. So you're not going to fight a World War II style war in the modern age. You'll die. Like F-35s are useless around really good air defense systems. And even though Canada doesn't really have much for air defense, it doesn't mean we aren't going to get it. And it also doesn't mean there won't be other things, right? No airplane can withstand punishment while it's sitting on the ground. You know what I mean? They all get destroyed there. That's where they get destroyed. But you got to be able to get the airplanes in the air in the first place. How do you do that? You got to get fuel up there. Oh. What happens to fuel refineries when you fight on your own soil? Ask Russia. Ask Ukraine. Look, Ukraine is basically fighting without fuel. You know what I mean? They're fighting without fuel. Think about that. And the Ukrainians have lost about 2,000 tanks, right? Of their 2,000 tanks. They've lost pretty much them all. They've lost so much equipment. Ukraine was the second largest military in NATO. I think Turkey's the largest. Or the third, but Ukraine was the largest military in Eastern Europe, right? And Russia's much, much bigger than that. And even at that, with all the advancements that Russia has, which would be about the equivalent between Canada and the United States, it would be just as devastating or worse. It'll be 10 times worse. It'll be 10 times worse than what you're seeing in the Ukraine. Just because the way the war would be fought would be very, very dirty. It'd be very, very dirty. And it would be very, very quick. Like, for example, Zelensky waited 4 days of the Russians invading before he got his troops to react, right? He's basically taking all his foreign aid, building gold-plated toilet bowls and stuff like that, and very little is getting to the front line. And the Ukrainians still have the will to fight, even though they are losing the war. The thing is with Canada, one thing, yes, we have corruption. There's no doubt about that. I'm not saying our government, all the governments in the world are corrupt. Every government leader around the world has failed their people. There's no doubt about that. But the difference is Canada would have the same will to fight as the Ukrainians, and you would be dealing with World War I style Canadians, which is the worst fucking type of Canadian you could ever be up against, and then giving them modern enough anti-tank weapons, stuff like that. That's what the military would be doing, okay? The civilian population in plain clothes, and the American population in plain clothes would be skirmishing across the border, sabotaging pipelines, water towers, rail lines, fuel. Basically, within probably about a week, there would not be a single refinery left in the United States, right? There wouldn't be probably all your food grain silos would be being taken out. The civil war that would ensue of the anti-Trumper, anti-Canadian war people versus the pro-Canadian war people would lead into civil clashes in your cities. On top of that, we're talking extreme chemical warfare, terrorist attacks, even if it's chemical warfare light, in major American cities, stuff like that. And every U.S. base gets hit. The navies get it. Like, it would be an absolute disaster, and it would take place probably most of it would be the first 6 months. You would probably see 100 million Americans just starve to death, or be killed by each other in a Mad Max kind of scenario, no rule of law, on top of Canadians going down and just busting everything. And so, yeah, but they'd be doing the same thing up here. Yeah, but we're more unified up here. Even if, like people laugh at the elbows up thing. Sure, I get that. It's cringe. But you have to understand that's a stepping stone to nationalism, which we see how Canadians react in a crisis versus Americans. There's a reason why you can't have a trucker convoy, organic trucker convoy in the States. Americans are individualists. Canadians are more collectivist. That's why you can get guys in minus 30 for 3 months sitting there honking their horns, driving across 3,000 kilometers across the country. They'll do this. Why? Because we're one of mind. Even if we have all these other little differences, we'll just put it away. We saw it during the French Indian Wars. We saw it through the colonial wars. Like Canadians pulled together. The Fields of the Plains of Abraham battle was made up of a lot of old stock Canadians. They were in solidarity as Canadians, right? Not British. Even the British were in solidarity as Canadians, not British, right? So that's why you were able to get Scotsmen, Brits, and Frenchmen and natives to fight side by side, right? Because they understood that it was bigger than just their egos and individualism. Thought didn't even cross their mind. That to act as an individual, right? The Americans, they're hyper individualistic. That is the biggest undoing you have, and then not to mention all the dissidents within the militaries. Most Canadians would be on the defensive, right, in the military, so they wouldn't see it as, hey, I don't want to fight my American friends. They'd see it that way, but they wouldn't be like, that's it, I'm not going to do this. They would be like, no, they're attacking. We have to. It's unfortunate, but we have to defend, right? Even if you can say only 10% of the Canadian military is actually useful, it's a very useful 10%. I know people dog on our military all the time because they don't understand it and stuff like that. But the guys that are in there, they know who the diversity hires are. Yeah, they'll run from the battlefield. We know that. We know the women are not going to be on the battlefield in the same. Look, the Ukraine is a perfect example of what happens to women on the battlefield. The Kurdish female fighters against ISIS, we know what happens to women on the battlefield. They don't last long. Russia, yes, they fielded tons of women on the battlefield as snipers because they couldn't keep up with the men. And we know what happened to most of the Russian female snipers. They just got brutalized, right? So they were affected. Viet Cong, yeah, they had women fighting alongside men too. How well did they do? Not so well. They couldn't run as fast. They couldn't carry the stuff. That's why they set them up as snipers. So, because they just couldn't keep up, right? Now, snipers are useful. Snipers are very useful, right? And Americans think there's no guns in Canada and stuff like that. Again, there's as many guns in Canada as there is people. So like the firearm behind every blade of grass kind of theory stands here. Plus, Canada is like Iwo Jima with pine trees in Afghanistan, in the wintertime. You know what I mean? Yeah, good luck fucking invading that, Now, that said, the Saboteur War is mainly what kills people, is that it's the Saboteur. It's not going to be sure, you can send in your F-35s and hit targets, but you can't, air power, no matter how dominant your air power is, you pretty much can't win a war with air power. The Americans have proved this over and over again, that air power is not how you win wars. It's boots on the ground, meaning you have to send troops into Canada. Full of lakes, full of choke points. If you were to send tanks through the Canadian Rock Shield, there's no amount of drone surveillance that could keep you safe in there. You would be slaughtered in seconds. Slaughtered in seconds. And that's by the domestic population, not, all tanks burn. You know what I mean? It's like there's just, you don't want to do that. There's no place to really successfully invade Canada. There really isn't. You can't come in from the north, you will die. And the amount of fuel it would take and the route you would have to it would take you 9 months just to make a route from the Arctic down. If you could even invade that way. You know what I mean? Like this whole Red Dawn war is going to be over in 3 days, kind of. Well, you don't understand warfare. It's only the people that say this, like they're just bravado. They don't understand how guerrilla warfare works. They don't understand logistics. They don't understand that, okay, it takes, yeah, you got a 1 million man army. Try moving that in one night. What's the cost of that? How do you get enough fuel for your planes? How do can you get enough planes in the air to do that? What happens to all these planes after about a week? What's the maintenance? How many are grounded due to maintenance? The F-35s in 2 weeks in a war will be completely useless. They'll all be on the ground for maintenance. 30 hours of maintenance for every 1 hour flown. Yeah. Now add that to a Globemaster. There you go. Another 30 to 50 hours of maintenance for every 1 hour flown. What's going to happen to that aircraft sitting on the ground? Well, it's going to be riddled full of holes. Here's a C5 Galaxy loaded up full of tanks and everything like that, and everything they need sitting on the runway being fueled up. Suddenly, one mortar comes in, lands dead center on that, and good luck. Or a drone lands on the wing. You say, well, that'll never happen. That can't happen here because we're so advanced. But it happened in Russia. You know how many fucking hits the Ukrainians got on Russia inside Russia? And that's an army that's, again, fighting without almost any fuel or ammunition left. And that's what they can do. You know what I mean? Like, imagine, the Canadian military is much more advanced than what the Ukrainian military is technology-wise, right? Sure, we'd have a lot of stuff blinded on us, but it's not going to come down to the equipment. It's going to come down to the tactics. It's going to come down to the logistics. It's going to come down to people fucking starving to death because every natural gas line is off. Just the hydro going off for the first week, how many people die in the hospitals? You know what I mean? You're going to run out of diesel within probably 30 days. You know what I mean? That's what the war would do. Like the United States can't feed itself completely. It can't. It has way too many people to take care of, right? So yeah, sure. Good luck recruiting people after, we'll just have a draft and every man, woman, and child fight. No. And it doesn't work like that. When you're being attacked, people volunteer. When you're the attacker, the aggressor in the modern age, people aren't going to do that. Politicians will be hunted down to the ends of the earth if they were to do something this stupid. So no, the United States is got two places of contention for Canada where Trump could start the war. And the first place is around the Great Lakes. He wants to seize that territory. He's open. His words, not mine. And obviously, the Americans are now looking to destroy NORAD after they destroy Kuzma, because if they can destroy Kuzma, then Carney will he'll be on his back foot again, because we're going to pivot it back here again. But it all plays in. This is what I mean when I tell you guys we're going to war with the Americans. They're starting the war, but what it's about is stealing our resources. Right? The same way they want to steal the resources out of Venezuela. They tried it in Iraq, didn't work. They tried it, everywhere they try it, it doesn't seem to work. But they try it, right? War's a racket. But the thing is that Trump has now figured out that what Carney's going to do is kick the Kuzma can down the road, or USMCA can down the road, not negotiate it at all. Because if we do, then 85% of the stuff that's no longer, that's tariff-free, which is most of the trade we're doing with the United States. The oil sector is going to take a bit of a hit. The auto sector is taking hits. Like GMC is, and Stellantis, they took bailout, like investment money from Canada, and then decided that they're going to run back to the States with it. So there's going to be trade disputes there. Stuff like that. But the thing is that the sectors that are getting hit versus the sectors that are protected, versus the sectors that are diverting away from the United States. Like the United States is killing off not just the trade between Canada and the United States, but trade with other countries. They've lost about 25% of their trade around the world. That's a fucking crazy number. That no wonder the government shut down. It's like, oh, we can't let the people see this. That's going to have devastating effects. and every week that goes on, you're going to see it just get a little bit worse, right? Until it's like, okay, it's obvious to everybody that Trump has done this on purpose. He's not incompetent. He's doing it on purpose because this is what the banksters want, right? So the thing is that if Trump gets rid of the USMCA and Kuzma, that could be massively devastating for us up here in Canada, you know. And I figure if he does it, it'll be doing it by about January. But that said, it doesn't really matter at this point because no matter what, if you're an American, you hate Canada with a passion because Canada's screwing us over, blah, 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 and you believe everything Trump says, okay, fine. I get that. But here's what's about to happen to you because it's already in play. Going back to the farmers. If the farmers can't get the input costs down by next season, that is it probably for half your farmers to 3/4 of your farmers. That's it. That's about 750,000 people and some to 1 million farms that might close down next year. This is where Trump has you right now. This is like Holodomor 2.0. At that point, who's going to feed you? What, just Monsanto? Monsanto is not going to produce enough food, right? So no matter what, you're in food shortage crisis. So why get rid of Kuzma? Well, if you get rid of Kuzma and you bring in, what's the new thing that they're trying to, like everybody, the EU's a threat, Canada's a threat. Well, what the Canada threat thing is about is the idea is that what I think is going to happen is Trump is going to cut off the all military deals with Canada, saying, well, Canada is not a reliable partner, they're too close to China, blah, 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 and they're a threat to us because they have to convince the American people that Canada is the root of all evil if they want to attack us, right? But where do they want to attack? The second place of contention, probably the most important for Canada, is the Northwest Passage. The United States has disputed that as international waters. It's clearly not. It's well within our continental boundaries. It's not, like they're looking at it, well, it's kind of like Hawaii. There's international waters in between, but it's not even close. Like, here's Canada, right up there. You can see the very top of Canada. Yeah. We opened that up with icebreakers back in the 90s, the Northwest Passage. We found a way through. We were the ones to do it, and it went through our Arctic waters. And everybody, the Chinese are trying to make a claim to it. The Russians are trying to make a claim to it. Everybody's trying to make a claim to it. But Canada's like, fuck you, no, it's ours. But the thing is we have to be able to defend it. Now, we have enough icebreakers to get up there. The Americans only have 2, and we have new icebreakers on the way, so do the Americans, but the thing is that the icebreakers are part of it. What the Americans don't have is patrol icebreakers like we have, like the Harry DeWolf. Now, the Harry DeWolf is a very lightly armed icebreaker, right? So it's enough to patrol, but it's not enough to take on warships and shit like that. But it can do a lot of things up there, such as lay down. It replaces the Kingston class in a way where, but we still have the Kingston classes. You put undermine surveillance sea cables up there. We do all that kind of stuff up there. Again, we do very advanced shit up there, but it's because of the hyper partisan politics that left versus right and all that. People don't know this stuff, right? That's why I always sound divergent to everybody, because it's like, yeah, but no, let's get rid of the hyperbolics that this is the good guy, that's the bad guy. They're all bad guys. They're all fucking evil. There's no doubt about it. It's just who's going to get us killed, who's not. Trump is trying to get a lot of people killed. Carney, he doesn't care if you get killed. But, he again, these men only care about their portfolios and the stakeholder investor class, right? Stakeholder capitalists. Same as Klaus Schwab. That's what they care about. No, Trump is now signaling that he wants to make a go for the Arctic. He's already told us this. He wants to, what do you think invading Greenland's all about? He's serious about that. Why? Because he wants the minerals and everything. But if you control the Northwest, Steve Bannon talked about this. Trump wants to control the Northwest Passage and the Panama Canal. right? And then you get an Arctic defense. You can keep the Chinese out, you can keep the Russians out, right? Now, the idea is it's not just about trade, it's about military hemisphere, right? But it's not going to work because Trump, all he had to do was say, hey, well, let's butter up the Canadians. Let's make the, instead of attacking them all the time with, oh, well, Canada's so bad and they're screwing us over on every trade deal. And when you really look at the details of the trade deal and look at the details of it, it's like, no, there might be some disputes here. Yes, softwood lumber has been disputed before I was even born, and it will be probably disputed after I die. But the thing about the softwood lumber and all that in Canada is Americans need Canadian lumber because it's better lumber. There's something about lumber trees growing in -40 that make them really fucking good, right? And the Americans don't have the good softwood. That's why you buy it from us. It's just ours is better quality. The 80% of your fertilizer coming from Canada, right? Saskatchewan. So Trump's attack on Venezuela will be about taking over the Venezuelan oil fields and the things like, other minerals and resources, whatever. So you get the gas and oil from Venezuela after you do the regime change, but you also get their potash. Then you can cut Saskatchewan off and Alberta off, and you won't need us anymore. Good luck with that. Like, it doesn't work that easy, right? Like, it's like you're not playing a game of Monopoly here. You know what I mean? Even if you could get, without blowing up any of the Venezuelan mines or anything like that, even if you could get that and take it over day 2, the logistics of just getting that set up to be able to export that to you, that's going to take months to years. You know what I mean? At best, at best. And that's not to say you wouldn't be sabotaged by the Venezuelans, right? Like the Venezuelans, I don't think they're going to win a war against the United States per se, but they will probably, if they're serious about defending their country, the United States will lose that war by one way only, and that's just the losses. Will the people tolerate the losses? It's the same problem China has with Taiwan. It's their war to lose. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, China, they've got this and they can cruise missile strike for months on end and stuff like that and isolate. Like, let's say nobody comes to Taiwan's defense. The Japanese said they would. I don't know if they would. I would love to see, I wouldn't love to see, but it'd be interesting to see how the Japanese are going to fight with the Chinese again, and to see Japan, because the Japanese are fucking insane when they fight, right? The Chinese, yeah, they're the Japanese and the Chinese hate each other with a passion. All Asians hate each other with a passion. Like, if you think, Europeans have tiffs, like the Asians, they hate each other with an extreme passion, right? Like in Japan, if you're half Chinese, half Japanese, the Japanese don't accept you as Japanese. You know what I mean? The Chinese a little bit more tolerant. Not saying I'm favoring China, but they're a little bit more tolerant. But they view everything as one China. It's like the Australians, yeah, that's one China policy. We own down there, And the Chinese, they don't have the power to project like that yet, like the Americans do. But give them 10 years, 15 years, their Navy will be completely blue water and big. It's just they don't have the world experience of years and years and years of fighting with all these countries and doing regime change to be successful, right? That'll take another 50 years before they can do that. But they're going to collapse way before that. So the Northwest Passage is basically on Trump's radar. The Great Lakes are on Trump's radar. He wants to take that. That's why he keeps saying, Canada's border is an arbitrary line. Canada's a nothing country. We're going to throw out Kuzma because basically Trump needs to find a way to destroy the Canadian economy. And it is fragile. There's no doubt about that. And everybody's just going to blame Carney if Trump does something bad, right? But the thing is most Canadians are normies in the middle. And the way they're looking at it is we're not getting the pain and suffering from the tariffs that the Americans are getting, but we're taking hits, right? But we're also getting accidental wins out of it, where with Trump, you're not getting any accidental wins at all. This farmer bailout is because of the devastation done to the farmers. The farmers are telling you they're losing $300 to $400 per acre of crop when they're not making money. And the money that they get in the bailout package, okay, they're just going to give that to the too big to fails. So the farmer still doesn't get bailed out. He takes that money and pays off his debtors. That's it. And those debtors are the big agros, like Monsanto, and there's a couple of them, and they control the supply, the prices of the crop supplies, which, because there's no supply management, again, I know there's a lot. Canadian farmers will go on about how they hate supply management. Wait till it's gone. You get Canadians out there that complain about a single payer healthcare system. Wait till it's gone. I'm telling you, you will not like free market capitalism. You will not, in those two areas. You will not like free market capitalism in your farming. You will not free market capitalism in your medical system. You don't believe us? Ask the Americans. Just look at what's happening to them. Yeah, the big agro. Yeah, okay. I need to make $17 a bushel or $14 a bushel, and you're only going to give me 10 because they can. They have monopoly over it, right? So there's no protection for the farms. They get bailouts or subsidies, but to get a subsidy, okay, well, to get the subsidy, okay, maybe half of your crop didn't turn out. Okay, we have to destroy the other half so that you can get the subsidy, or else you don't get the subsidy. So now you got food shortage. Rather than saying, okay, well, the half that's good, sell it, and then we'll subsidize the rest. Again, these guys are operating at a loss. It's farmer after farmer after farmer. Yes, they voted for Trump. No, they did not vote for this. They did not expect this. Nobody did. That's why 2/3, or at least half to 2/3 of Trump supporters are no longer in support. That's why you're going to see probably a massive slaughter in the midterms in favor of the Democrats. And Trump, I think maybe his goal is to be like Nigel Farage and destroy the Republican Party once and for all. And you're going under extreme communism by 2028. They'll run a fucking sock puppet. It'll win against Trump at this point. Trump would have to pull such a rabbit out of his hat, massive win for yeah, but we're making money on the tariffs. No, you're not. Yes, you're bringing in money, but you're not making any money. No, you have $3 trillion that you have to come up with just to keep your fucking government running. You guys are in massive, massive trouble. The collapse is now. I can't, but yeah. So what happens when, governments collapse and so? Well, sometimes they go to war with their neighbors. So Trump's figures his big solution is collapse it all for the Great Reset stuff. Help out Klaus Schwab, all those people. And in the reset, we'll take out Canada. I'll do this, but here's what we get. So in other words, we're going to war with Canada. And no, Canada is going to, again, we were supposed to just capitulate on day one. Even Trudeau said, fuck you, make me. I hate that man. You know what I mean? Carney has been playing the more calculated game. Not perfect. Yes, I get it. We just sent an aid package to Ukraine. Yes, the Americans benefit on that. Why won't Trump tell you that? Yeah, that $240 million or whatever that we could use here at home going to Ukraine. Again, I admire the Ukrainians' will to fight. And yes, it is the Obama administration and the Trump administration and the Biden administration that has kept the war going. Sure, Putin's guilty of attacking Ukraine, but they kind of forced the hand and gave them everything they needed to make that happen so that NATO could fight, Russia to the last Ukrainian. Yeah. No, we need to, get the Ukrainians to the table. They've lost 20 or 30% of their country. If we can keep it at that and no more loss of lives, that would be. No, the Ukrainians won't agree with this. Why? Because they're being attacked. They're angry, rightfully so. But the people they should be angry at the most are the people that are fucking them over the most, are the people that they're supporting. Like Zelensky and the Trump administration and the Obama administration, the Obama Biden administration. Yeah, these are the people that have got your loved ones killed, fucking around, giving Russia the green light. You know what I mean? They should have never done the regime change. The Russians picked up on it during the Sochi Olympics. They had time to prepare for it. NATO and George Soros and all those people, and the Obama administration did a coup, a colored revolution coup in Ukraine. The Russians counter coup and they got Crimea out of it. Now they're going for the rest. So yeah, so with Trump making everybody in Europe an enemy of the state with the Monroe Doctrine and all that stuff, the thing to watch out for is the deterioration of NORAD, because they're going to need to blind Canada in the Arctic so that they could take over the Northwest Passage. Right, they're going to have to do it that way. I don't think it's going to work out that way, because I think Carney's already said, look, he wants to take us over, like plain and simple, exact quote. Trump wants to take us over. The Trump administration wants to take over Canada. Like he's just trying not to do it so hyperbolically. But this is why Carney's probably racing for, because you can't do it overnight. Like you're not going to send the U.S. Navy up there. Right? There are people that think you can send, okay, well, we'll just send our best warship up into the Arctic right now. Yeah, you're not getting up in there right now. You're not going to get up in there till about June. Why? Something about like 30 fucking feet of ice there. And again, I know this is how the American invasion of the Arctic, or the American invasion of the Arctic is going to go. You'll meet up with the Louis Saint Laurent icebreaker, okay, and the Terry Fox and the Franklin. And what's the other? The 19 icebreakers, okay? And they'll break the way through the Northwest Passage for you so you can take it over. Oh, by the way, those are Canadian icebreakers. Your two are like 3 months behind. Yeah. So we'll help you invade us. Yeah, you'll need that. You'll have to take over our icebreakers if you want to get up there, because you ain't getting up there till June. You know what I mean? Like that's you're not getting through there at all, right? And the thing is that, you have to get rid of NORAD. The best way to do that, again, this is why Carney, every time he capitulates to Trump moves the goalposts so that it's like, oh no, well, it's not good enough. And then all the people on the right are, again, I'm on the right myself, but I'm not on the conservative right, because they don't care about, they're capitalists. They don't care about the country. They don't care about the people. They care about big corporations and big donors and stuff like that. Carney's no different. Trump is no different. I'm a nationalist, right? Nationalist, right? Meaning Canada first. Canadians first. Not foreigners first. Not, foreign aid. Not supporting other people's foreign wars, but us first. But that said, because the battlefield is going to change, like, yes, the aid package that we did just bought artillery from the States to send to Ukraine. Okay, well, maybe we might want that artillery for ourselves. And it's only because the United States is the only country that has a large enough weapons manufacturing to, supply Ukraine, right? So everybody's just, which is a win for the Trump administration. But why give money to the country? Why support the industries of a country that's about to invade us, right? That said, I think the Nordic alliance that we're seeing go right now, it's not about the soft grip and per se. I think it's going to be like about a lot of other things. For example, NWAL anti-tank weapons and stuff like that. I could see Canada, okay, well, we can't get the submarines yet. I think we have to go stopgap. I think we have to make a deal with the Germans, say, hey, we'll do cross-training with you guys on our subs, bring some of your subs over, do another, get the amount of subs we need. Maybe we buy those 3 Scorpion subs from Chile that we were going to buy back in the 90s. Buy them, just get guys training on them, upgrade them a bit, because 2035 would be the earliest submarine we could see from any nation. But like all this, you're going to get it in 10 years kind of weapons deals. No, we need to start stocking up on a bunch of Leopard tanks, but most importantly, start stocking up on drones even more, which we're building drones, which might make, like, tanks are not completely obsolete. So you don't need hundreds of them. You don't. I think what you need is really light, mobile, fast APCs, stuff that can fire mortars and run, shoot and scoot, a lot of shoot and scoot. We have 900 labs. We can do this. We already got like lots of mortar labs and stuff like that. And that's the stuff that's going to be working with the drones. Integrate those work on that so that if you're ever attacked, never mind, direct one-on-one with the battle tank or whatever, we'll have the rolling armor or the rolling artillery to basically repel people from like 30 kilometers away, you know what I mean, or 10 kilometers away, whatever. That's what we need to do is cover our hillsides and mountains and access points to the country. A lot of people say, yeah, well, we'll just roll tanks through Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Manitoba. Yeah, good luck with that. yeah, do that. Yeah, do that. Yeah, what happens to, like, it's not World War II where you could put 1,300 tanks, in the Battle of the Bulge, you know what I mean, in the middle of a field somewhere. You can't do that anymore. You put a tank out past the tree line for 5 minutes, a drone's going to take it out. Ask the Ukrainians, ask the Russians. You know what I mean? This is the problem they're having. The Russians have 12,000 tanks. It's not making that much of a difference. So the Abrams tanks, which are really high maintenance, really hard to keep running. Those things are not going to do that well out in the middle of Saskatchewan with drones flying around. Those things will be wiped out in minutes, right? Like, it's to the point, like, if you look at the Ukrainians, they can't even get out of the vehicle without being shelled. It's the surveillance that's going to get you. You know what I mean? Oh, but we got satellites. You don't need satellites. You really don't. The satellites, they help, right? But once they're blinded or whatever, drones are much better. Like the short range stuff is going to be the light over might. It's going to be the ones with the most clever package, right? Anti-tank weapons like Spike that can fly, 8 kilometers, 6 kilometers, 8 kilometers over a tree line and down on top of your tank. I'd be more worried about that than I would be about an attack helicopter or whatever, or another tank. Because those are the things that are going to, and even those have limited success as well. So what we're finding out, and I've said this all the time, like, the weaponry is never as good as advertised. The F-35s are not as good as advertised. Yes, they can do damage, all that, but when, like, for example, when the Iranians decide to actually shoot these things down, they'll shoot them down in droves. When the Iranians decide to take out U.S. aircraft carriers, they'll do it in 5 minutes. And the only response you hear from, well, we'll nuke you. You won't be able to get airplanes off the ground. Why? Because they're going to be destroyed by, like, rebel groups. Like, you could destroy thousands of aircrafts in a week just on the ground. Like, if a well-coordinated, one guy fires a shot, you can pin down an entire platoon. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it'll take 4 hours to find the guy, like, and kill him. You know what I mean? Like, this is why you see so many people killed in conflicts in the first 6 months. It's the people that think they can be G.I. Joe and rush the mound. Anybody that's using Soviet style or even German blitzkrieg tactics now, like, you're going to get slaughtered the second you're out in the open. No, the Ukrainians have to find ways to sneak through the fucking tree line without getting detected by thermal imaging and drones, right? The second that you do, the artillery's right on top of you. So then they had to figure out how to get the trenches so that the artillery couldn't penetrate. Yeah, while they're sitting in the mud, knee deep in mud, having their feet fucking rot off them. That's what our world leaders have done to these poor people. And you got Trump talking about doing this to Canada. You know what I mean? But again, like, it's not, I think the way I've worked it out, it's like just the NATO standard of 3-1. Okay, so the Canadian military is not as big as the American military, right? But if we're fighting a defensive war and it is a 3-1 advantage to us to start, I don't think that's going to hold. I think it's going to be more like 18-20-1, meaning for every one Canadian you're going to kill, you're probably going to lose about 20 Americans in the process, just because our military might not be as big, but they know how to evade drones. They have drones. The American military knows how to invade drones, but to push forward, it's the same reason why the Russians can't just blitzkrieg the Ukrainians. The second you roll tanks in large numbers, you get taken out. You get taken out either by mortars, artillery. That is the number one thing on the battle. That is still killing. Tubed artillery is still the number one killer, next to drones. Drones, okay, artillery, you fire about 14,000 shots to kill one guy. That's artillery. Okay, you fly about 3 drones to kill one guy, or a tank, yeah. So no, the 1 million man army doesn't really mean much. It depends where it is. It depends where it's fortified in. What's going to make a difference is the sabotage, right? Now, this is coming on the backs of farmers telling you that, hey, look, yes, there was a record farming closures last year under Joe Biden. Okay, so that is Joe Biden's fault. So you had that on top of the shortage of farmers from the Eastern Seaboard, like I said, like from the storms, on top of, like a massive amount of farm closures because of the cost of doing business. Now, the thing is under Joe Biden, farming was, as bad as it was, according to the farmers, it's still cheaper than what it is under the Trump administration. Trump has probably destroyed, probably half to 2/3 of your farming. You guys are about to starve to death. I cannot, and he's going to try to blame it on Canada. There's Americans that'll believe that, but I think probably 80% of Americans are going to understand, no, this is his policies. This man just fucking murdered us and our children and our children's children. I can't believe this is happening. And again, I've been screaming about this for almost a year now. No, Trump's the good guy. Trump's the good. He's not. I'm not saying Carney's a good guy. Like, Carney would do the same to us if he's in the same position. Again, the only reason why Carney's not trying to make a dive for the United States is just because we're not in a position to do so. But if we were, he'd be doing it. He'd be saying, "Oh, the Americans are screwing us over." Blah 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 blah. Nobody was screwing each other over, really. Like, yes, trade disputes, sure, but you deal with them one at a time, like sensible people. It's slow, it's tedious, whatever. But what you don't do is destroy each other's economy, because the Americans can't endure the way Trump thinks they can. He's talking about, buying American potash. You guys don't have any. It's unobtainium. You can't get it. It doesn't matter how, you don't have, this is that part. Okay, Trump is stupid there, where he thinks that, America has every resource in the world. You don't. You have a lot. You're one of the most resource wealthy countries out there. Canada's number 1, Russia's number 2, the United States might be number 3, and then after that might be, who knows, maybe Australia, maybe China. I don't know. And then, Canada's one of the largest oil reserves on the planet. Venezuela is they're in the top 5. The Americans have lots, but they have almost 340 million people if you add up the illegals and everything. Probably about 360 million. Nobody knows how many Americans are down there and illegals, right? And if America was to isolate, it would have a shortage fall of about 40% of its oil, meaning overnight you've got it'd make the 1970s gasoline shortage look like a joke. You know what I mean? On top of, that would also hurt farmers even more. The input cost for the farmers is this was a self-inflicted wound of pure evil. Like, Trump is going to starve Americans out. And yeah, I figure you're going to run out of food. Again, even if there was bumper crops this year, I don't think it matters now. This kind of the farmers are telling you, look, we're fucked. This is our last year at best. They're going to get their subsidy, and then next year they're just not going to farm. So Bill Gates can buy up everything. You know what I mean? And even if Bill Gates did, those farms are not going to be operational for another decade. Once they're closed down, it's not okay, they come in overnight and, it's just going to be seamless transition. No, it's we'll buy the property, then we got to outfit the property. That takes a couple of years. We'll do this many properties this year, this many properties that year. These people, these real estates, the scam is the same everywhere. It's in the housing industry. Oh, let's let the banks buy up the houses when they go bankrupt, so we'll own it all. and then again, it's so corrupt. And that's what you were going. Again, Khrushchev was right. Yeah, okay, he was an evil man, the same way Stalin was, maybe not to the same degree, but he was right. Yeah, give the capitalists enough rope to hang themselves with. Like they'll buy their own rope that they're going to hang themselves with, and that's what it is. Free market and competition. We always have to have more competition. No, we don't. No, we don't. We don't. We need stability. We need nationalism. We need, more protectionism. You can still do foreign trade, stuff like that, whatever, but you have to have mutually beneficial trade and not to the point where we're just going to keep undercutting the labor to put our own guys out of business. This is why China is the monster it is, because we basically built them by giving them all our manufacturing because of our free market capitalist ideas of cheaper stuff, cheaper stuff. Now, the era of cheap stuff is over. Supply chain 2.0. Who knows exactly what it's going to be? But, if anybody wants to survive, they're going to have to say, you know what, maybe we need supply managements. Oh, but that's communism and socialism. It's not. You need to protect. If you don't want to end up in the third world, you need to protect from the third world. And the capitalists will lead you to the third world because we got rid of our manufacturing to have a service sector economy. Now we don't even have a functioning service sector economy. You know what I mean? Because we got rid of all our manufacturing, and now we have to import, the service sector class because it's like, oh well, it's too expensive. Everything's always too expensive. Where it's like, okay, well, what happens to velocity of money when you drive wages down? Well, it goes away. People don't spend stuff. They become frugal. So Monroe Doctrine is definitely being aimed at Canada. Yes, Trump looks like he wants to get rid of NORAD, which would be a dumb idea. The Russians will exploit that for sure. But I think Carney's, cozying up to the Nordic countries and with the Nordic defense and, even having Australia, we'll see how well those over-the-horizon radar systems work, which would be a good idea for Canada if we can get them working in the Arctic. Again, we have to test it out, right? Because maybe it works great in Australia in the hot, dry weather, but it might not work so great up here in the Arctic. But if it does, that will make our Arctic. It'll give us a lot of radar coverage. But we need to get air defense systems up there. We need to start getting ahead of. We need to think of the country more defensively. So all these defense packs that we're making, I know we're supposed to get. Like, for example, we're buying air defense systems, NASAMS air defense systems for Ukraine. Well, we should be getting those for ourselves. Right now, our only air defense systems are basically off the CF-18s and, our Halifax class frigates, right? That's our main air defense systems. We're going to have ground air defense systems. And I think we're probably going to see an uptick probably in 2026 of that discussion coming in saying if we want to keep the Arctic safe, we have to have not only the Arctic bases open, but they have to have anti-shipping and like for example, we build the Sea Scepter anti-shipping, anti-aircraft missile. We're building those already. Maybe we need banks of them on our shorelines, just to keep warships out of the, and other ships out of the, the Northwest Passage that are unwanted. Like again, we need to crack down on that for sure, and beef it up and get there before everybody else decides to make a move on it. And I think the Nordic countries will be helping us with that. So we'll have people stationed in alert on a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, have them up there, have that base good and functional. Recruitment is slightly up in Canada. It's down in the States. I think some of it might have to do with just, like the pivot that Carney's making with our military and stuff like that. But again, with the potash, extra, tariffs going on the potash on top of the tariffs that were already on there. God help the American people. Trump is about to starve you to death. You will see it probably around February. There'll be no doubt about it. Who you'll blame it? You'll blame it on Biden. You'll blame it on us. Whatever. The idea is to get Americans to hate Canadians and cha cha cha. Yes, we'll take Canada over in 3 days. It won't happen like that. It's never happened like that. If you were to take Vietnam, okay, place it around a gazillion lakes in the Afghani mountains, on Iwo Jima in the middle of the wintertime, that is what invading Canada would be. It'd be impossible. It'd be impossible. And that's just with, the civic defense systems that would be coming in. Like, there would just be snipers everywhere. You know what I mean? Never mind the military. You got 2 million gun owners you got to deal with. Even if only 10% of them come out to rise to the challenge, even if they lose 15-1, you lose thousands and thousands of people in the invasion. Could the American people stomach invading their true number one ally, who had the best trade partner that the rest of the world, like all of a sudden, like it's a self-inflicted wound. And again, just to start a war that would go on probably for 30 years. And the way it's going to play out is Canada would be fighting a defensive war, but then once we got the upper hand, we would take the northern United States and Alaska. You'd say that'll never happen. Yes, it will. You got to think of the logistics of this. You will not be able to resupply Alaska. There'll be no way to do it. You won't be able to get through the highway. And one of the things Canadians would let you do is try to run that highway. You would never be able to run that highway safely. We'd be basically artillerying you from 30 kilometers away. And just like, okay, let them make a run for it. Okay, that's not our truck. Hit their truck. We'd kill thousands of Americans just trying to run that highway to supply Alaska. Oh, well, we'll send our ships around. Sea Scepters, man. The Sea Scepters are going to take you out. The remaining of the Harpoons are going to take you out. Not to mention all the other new weaponry that will be coming in. Mark 48 torpedoes. We build those fuckers. You know what I mean? Canada's 4 submarines might have a lot of problems, but there's 18 torpedoes there you got to deal with. One successful torpedo on an aircraft carrier could cripple the aircraft carrier. 6 will destroy it, no doubt. So if we lose a submarine to one of your aircraft carriers, we lose 48 men. You lose 5,000 to 8,000. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you're gambling with. You'll never get close enough of the Canadian submarines. As old as the Victoria submarine is, they've surfaced beside American warships, French warships, British warships, completely undetected. And when I mean surface beside them, I mean within like a couple of 100 feet. Say, hey guys, how's it going? Last time we did it was a French warship, one of their best warships they had, and they fucking had no idea we were there. That's what you're up against. You'd say, yeah, well, our submarines would do the same. Exactly. Exactly. That's the point I'm making. And then once you're down to submarine, then it's the better captain wins. It's, like, you got to think these things out, how, modern technology is pretty much on par. If you have equipment that's maybe 10 years older than the other equipment, you're still within the range of that equipment. Like everybody's like, oh, the Russian Air Force, why don't we see them over the Ukraine as much? They're no good. Oh, they're running out of ammo. They're clearly not. The Russians are basically getting a war economy going. And, they're expanding very scarily. But they've also figured out how to fight. And the fight is long-range weapons. Now, Canada, should we get the soft Gripens, they will be in the air much more, than any F-35. They're going to be probably flying at a rate of 2 or 3 to 1. So meaning for every 1 hour you get on your F-35, you're going to get about 3 or 4 on the soft Gripens. My money's on the soft Gripens. And, those Meteor missiles can kill over 100 miles away. You know what I mean? The satellites are not going to be enough. Like anti-satellite technologies already exist. We'll be blinding those, even if we don't have a lot. So this idea that it's just going to be a cakewalk, well, if it was a cakewalk, the Russians would have completely taken the entirety of Ukraine already. They can't. Why? And Russia is the second most powerful and technologically advanced military in the world. Again, and even with the manpower they have a 4 million man army and they can't take Ukraine in 5 minutes. And Ukraine, again, they're fighting without fuel. They're fighting with, that they're using Mirage 2000 jets, without proper maintenance, whatever, chasing down cruise missiles and shooting them down. It's pretty fascinating what they're doing. Okay, and they're holding on. Now, that said, if you look at what Trump is doing and what he's saying and what he has said, he said he's going to attack Canada economically first. So by getting rid of CUSMA, the way he's probably viewing it is it will crush the Canadian economy overnight as soon as the tariffs hit everything, right? Because then nobody will buy anything Canadian. But it's going to have a boomerang effect to the point where it's going to probably take out, my hunch, 10 to 15% of the U.S. economy in this backfire because of the way, again, your guys on the right won't tell you this, the guys on the left won't tell you this. But if you look at the Canadian economy, it is a tumor grafted into an American tumor. Our economies are so intertwined over so many different things, because it's globalism, right? That almost no country manufactures one item by itself. It's like you want a Harley Davidson, fine. You're going to get the wire harness from Singapore. You're going to get the front end from Mexico. You're going to get the engine from Detroit. You're going to get the pistons from Quebec. You're going to, you know what I mean? You're going to get the chassis from somewhere else. The auto industry is even worse, And so almost nothing is made 100% in any one country, right? Which that will take decades to reverse this. So Trump is not America first. He is in conquest mode. He figures he's Napoleon and in conquest and is just going to capture all the Canadian resources because we're just going to lay down and hand it over to him. Well, if we won't just, cave in on a couple of tariffs, do you really think we're going to hand the Northwest Passage to you? Do you really think we're going to let you move the border on the Great Lakes back so you can drain the Great Lakes? Trump wants to drain the Great Lakes. You can't even make this insanity up. It's like, no, the Great Lakes on both sides of the border have, environmental protections on it so that doesn't happen. You start lowering the water table in the Great Lakes, you're going to have fucking freighters stuck everywhere. You know what I mean? And not only that, you're getting rid of the world's largest fresh water. You gotta, Nuwapa was a bad idea. That's one area where I disagreed with Lyndon LaRouche and the LaRouche package. Nuwapa was, okay, Glass-Steagall, sure, good idea. Nuwapa, bad idea. Bad idea for Canada because the idea was to just drain all our, water from fresh water from Canada into the States. You know what I mean? It can be done, but it would have to be regulated. So, once you make everything commercial and capitalist, it just gets exploited, and then you end up like China and you run yourself out of your own resources, right? This is the way Trump thinks. Carney, he's all for industrialization because he's switching Canada from a welfare economy to an industrialization economy. But it's going to take a decade, 30 years maybe, to be completely sufficient on it, because that's what it took to bring in NAFTA, to destroy every country's sovereignty. It took about that. But anyway, the farmers are the big one. I can't stress this enough. You're going to hear reoccurring themes on this. Watch the food prices, not from the point of view of tariff inflation, but watch it from the point of view of shortage. That's what you need to know. When the farmers are telling you when farmer after farmer in state after state after state is telling you you are about to starve to death because we're going out of business, you need to fucking listen to them. Trump has already killed you. You just don't know it yet. So what I've been saying, whether you're on the left, whether you're on the right, I don't care. If you want to be feeding you and your family, you need to have at least 2 years worth of food for everybody in your family, or you are going to starve to death. There's no stopping it now. You started off with a shortage of farmers to begin with in the eastern seaboard because of hurricanes from last year taking the topsoil away and destroying farms on the eastern seaboard. Not to mention record-breaking, from Trump's mouth, record-breaking if you can believe the man. You can't really believe the man anything he says, but the farmers are also saying it too. So the stats are saying that the farmers, you've lost more farms last year under Joe Biden than probably out of any year, because of the capitalism thing of allowing these too big to fail, market, farming markets controlling the prices to the point where the farmers are just going out of business and losing money, $300-400 per acre. You're talking like $500,000 loss on a big farm, right? They can't take that hit. They get the subsidy bailout, but now you're talking more debt to the American taxpayer, right? And you'd say, well, Trump's, I love my farmers, but no, he doesn't. He hates the fucking farmers. Urban people typically have low opinions of rural people. That's not new. And yeah, it goes the other way a bit too, but it's mainly the people in the cities really hate the people that are feeding them. I've never understood this. I never will understand this. I'm like, okay, you're the farmer that you think is just such a lowbrow hick, okay? You have to understand how fucking smart that guy has to be a successful farmer. He has to be an engineer. He has to be a veteran. He has to be a botanist. He has to be a horticulturalist, an agriculturalist. He has to be a marketer. He has to be a business owner. He has to be a bookkeeper. Yeah, this man has to wear like 90 different hats just to, and then he has to be a family man to his family. Yeah. And then polite so he can actually, and a marketer. He has to be a marketer to get his, the farmer is probably the most versatile human being you could ever fucking come across. Ask me how I know. I grew up around people like that. You want to know something, they always know a little bit enough to be dangerous on every issue. And they are informed. They are very informed. They can tell you how the markets work, how they don't work, who's fucking them over, who's not. Yes, supply. That's why when you hear farmers complain about supply management, yeah, but in relative to what country? You know what I mean? Like Canada, yeah, the biggest issue I get in Canada with supply management is that there's farmers that can produce a little bit more, like for example, the dairy farmers, they produce too much milk. Once they hit their quota, they have to basically spill the milk out on the ground. It doesn't get to market. It's a waste. I agree with that. We shouldn't be wasting, but I understand the idea is not to flood the market with so much product that you end up like the States where, it like flooding the market. Again, there's a vine and a vice here. When you flood the market with so much stuff, the crops become virtually, worthless because it's, there's so much of an abundance. You can't get a good enough price for your crop because of the competition, which then means your operational costs, they go up, but your profits don't. And I don't know how a farm, like the micro farms, and this is what every farmer I've ever talked to has told me, and I'm talking real face, farmers from southern Ontario, Greenbelt guys. Like the giant agro farm makes money. The ones that are owned by like your Monsantos and stuff like that, they make money because, it doesn't matter if they make money, they get bailed out anyway. And the micro farmer makes money. The guys in between, they get fucking hammered because they're not big enough to get all the subsidies, and they're too big to have low operational costs, right? So, for example, the micro, farmers market guys, they use permaculture and stuff like that. They don't need, they might have a tractor or whatever, but most of the time they can pick their crops by hand and they don't have a lot of overhead costs, just a little bit of labor costs, right? Those guys, micro farms, I think are the wave of the future, if you ask me, not big agro. Because redundancy is reliability, right? And the farms in my area, they're not ginormous. There's a few of them that are big, but most of them are more like dairy farms. Like Quebec is like more dairy farm and stuff like that. When you get to Chauvel, you got a lot of crop farmers there, like corn, wheat, stuff like that. It's just because the land's good there. My grandfather said it best around here when this used to be a farm, that it was pretty sparse land when the grasshoppers had a pack of lunch for the day. That was his saying. He goes, only Frenchmen and Irishmen would plant rocks in their garden. That's the land around here. It's all beach sand here, so it's not. But we had wheat wheat, grain, stuff like that, hay in the back field. But my grandfather mainly had to buy that from other farmers, right? And but we had cows here, stuff like that. I don't think we ever had sheep and that many goats or anything like that, but we had cows, meat and dairy and stuff like that. But that was before my time. And then after that, there was always horses because, like I say, my grandfather did it, bushworking with the horses and stuff like that. The Amish, they still work in, the plowshare thing, plows with the horses and stuff like that a bit, but they are allowed. It's Hutterites, Mennonites, and Amish. The Amish, I don't think, can use any power. The Hutterites can use power if it's for the colony, for the farm, and the Mennonites, I can't remember. I think they could drive like normal vehicles and stuff like that. So Hutterites, Mennonites, and Amish, they kind of have this, their rules, right? But the Amish, the apocalypse can happen. Who's going to go tell them? It's like, yeah, everybody's dying in 2020. Did anybody tell the Amish? Because they're fine. They're fine. Yeah. Why? Because Brother Abraham sells, the corn to Brother Ezekiel, and then Brother Ezekiel sells his wheat to Brother Ishmael, and Brother Ishmael, basically sells wool to Brother Isaac, and Brother Isaac, sells whatever to milk to Brother Euseles, and you get the idea, right? And anyway, and then they all go to church together, at the end of it, and come back, whatever. Decide whose daughters are going to marry whose sons and stuff like that, and all those things. So those people don't have to worry about the Amish. The Amish aren't going to starve to death, right? But you could have roaming gangs of, Mad Max style, going around shooting Amish people to steal their stuff, because that's how low IQ people, what they do in desperate situations, right? We're talking about America. Look, Venezuela, they have riots in Caracas when they're starving to death. Argentina, they go to Buenos Aires and they have their whatever, right? And they basically, do their life. But as soon as they're done their rioting for the day in Venezuela, they go back home and they start working in the garden. You know what I mean? So they're not going to starve to death. You know what I mean? Americans, they're not ready for that kind of labor where everybody in the country has, yes, you got preppers and lots of preppers, stuff like that, but the average American believes the religion of the supermarket, right? So Canadians are no different. Rural people get it, but even most rural people, Canada, the United States, European, don't grow their own food, even if they have the acreage to do so. Like I said, I would love to if I get the barn cleaned out, like this is like my ultimate prepper place. You know what I mean? Like, it's not only going to be my art studio, whatever, but I was talking about, like, having horses and stuff like that. Get a dairy cow, just one. One's good, maybe two, because I don't know. I like things in pairs just so they have friends. It's like, here's Betsy and Betsy Boo, right? And you got these two dairy cows or whatever, or you get goats, a little easier to take care of. You can still get the milk or whatever. I would like to have some milking goats. Maybe have 3 goats. No billy goats whatsoever. I'd like to have miniature goats, but miniature goats still get pretty big. It's just they're a little easier to take care of than a full-size goat, but they would definitely be easier to take care of than a cow, right? But like Einstein said something really stupid, and the guy was intelligent. I know they make him out to be more than what he was, whatever, but he's like, he was a believer in veganism. He said it didn't make sense to grow wheat and grain and hay to feed animals that you were going to eat. It was kind of like he saw it as wasted energy. Kind of like you're doing all this work to feed these animals just to eat them when you could just grow more vegetables. And I'm like, okay, clearly the man was in an age where he probably grew up on a farm or something. But if you grew up in the city, maybe I'll cut him some slack. But okay, you do realize you need those animals' poop fertilizer to grow your crops, right? So you're going to have animals there. You might as well utilize them. If you have a pig, you're not going to let your pig get 500 pounds. You will never be able to feed the thing. It'll just eat too much. You at 180 pounds, after it's had a bunch of piglets, you're going to kill that pig. And then when the other piglets are up to 180 pounds, you'll slaughter them as well, and you'll keep the cycle going, right? Because that's how you keep a sustainable farm. If you have laying hens, okay, you're going to take one nest and you're just going to leave it be until the chickens hatch. And when they hatch, okay, the old hens, once they're of age, you'll kill off the old hens, eat them, and you'll cycle it, right? That's how you do it. And while you're doing that, you're going to be harvesting everything you need to be able to have the grain, the straw. Like, for example, this old farm here, okay, I know I'm off topic a little bit, but it is something that people are going to be thinking about next year once they get that massive food shortage scare, most likely coming in February. Maybe we're lucky and it gets diverted. Say, okay, well, the food aid that we were going to send to Africa, we're not going to send it there. We're going to keep it here, and that'll keep food on the shelves so we don't end up with food riots in the States. But I don't see how you get out of the food riots now. The farmers have been screaming and warning us, and people are like, no, Trump's our guy. They're telling you Trump's not your guy. They voted for him. They're being hit. Your farmers are the foundation of your society, not the military, not the banking class, not your capitalists, not your communists. It's the farmers. The farmers are Anyway, but no, I've got, like, for example, old farm implements that were converted from horse and ox to. I don't think we ever had oxes on this farm. I'll have to ask my dad, but they were basically converted to to be pulled by the tractor, right? But they could be converted back. So, for example, I have a baler, they call it a big rake. You see them in, like, they're an aesthetic. They got like this big round prongs coming out of it. There's usually about 20 or 30 of them. And when you drop it down, after you've got, unfortunately, one of them was my grandfather's. But when a guy about midway in the town, they sold the place, unfortunately passed away. He's basically the brother-in-law of one of my clients. But when Paul and I went and did scrap metal there was the hay cutters. And it's basically like a buggy, and it's got two blades that come down like this. And you go through your hay fields with the horse and buggy, or with the horse, that is the buggy, and you lower it down or whatever, and they just cut everything. It's like two giant size, and you just cut, and it's basically your side, right? And then you come along with the round prongs after, and you roll up all your bales. Now you can use an ox for this, a team of horses, whatever you want, right? And you do that. Now the problem with that is you cut it, then you have to let it dry, and then you roll it up, right? So the way they do it now, it's all kind of in one. You cut it. Some farmers do it differently that I see, where they go along with the tractor. They just cut everything, and everything's in like nice rows, and then they roll them up in bales. Or what they do is they they'll leave them out there, and then they start they let it dry. They usually, like the hay you get this year is from last year, right? They let it dry, right? So all that stuff. But anyway, we don't know how bad that is, but this is something I could do with this farm, right? If I had to, I'd have to do a lot of chainsaw to turn it back into a farm again, because I got to get a lot of trees out of here. But I could do it, you know what I mean? And it is something that I'm considering doing. If I want horses and stuff like that, I'd like to be able to have my own wheat, straw, and grain, and then do that. But I would have to function as an actual farm, which means I can't work for other people. You know what I mean? I'll have to work for myself. But how do you do it so that you actually make money, so you don't have to get big, combines and shit like that? If you're not making your own biodiesel and you can't build your own parts, it becomes something that's not easy to do, is what I'm saying. And this is what farmers are facing now, and this is what position that Trump has put everybody in, and it's done on purpose. So when we start seeing the food shortages and stuff like that, Trump is going to start saying, well, Canada owes us this and owes us that. They owe us $300 million for being our friend. Like the Trump administration is just firing off in all directions right now. The stuff they're saying, and the people that are still cheerleading Trump on the Canadian side, that makes no sense to me. It's that's why I hate the cheerleaders. Like, you look at the good stuff, you might say, which is not much right now, not even for the American people that voted for him. And on top of that, they're like the Maple MAGAs make no sense to me at all. Like, I understand like they jumped on the bandwagon and it was anti-Trudeau, and I get that. But like, you have to understand, the last country you want to be joined at the hip with, and unfortunately, the number one country joined at the hip with the United States is us. Tag, we're it. Is the United States, because of the debt, the hostility, that they're just going after everybody. No, Trump is not fighting the deep state. No, he's not doing what we wanted him to do. He's not making America great. No, he's not getting all kinds of business coming back to the United States. The very few companies that are going back to the States is heavily outweighed by the companies that are leaving and diverting. This is only going to get worse by next year. If Trump's idea is that, okay, we completely flatline the country, destroy it, and build it out of the ashes, fine, that's dandy, but he should have told you that up front, because here's the deal, like, you're going to take a little bit of pain, whatever, and then you're going to be fine after. What he doesn't tell you is, yeah, but we're going to probably starve. We're pulling Latimer Lens policies here where we're going to probably starve 20% of our population to death just so we don't have any more useless eaters. Right? Or to make conditions so, like, maybe the strategy is we have to make conditions so bad in the States that all the illegals just leave. Okay, fine, but you don't have to do that. Instead, you just cut off the welfare. So yeah, but the legal system won't work with us. And I understand that. There are a lot of people, even on his side of the fence, that are not working with him on the stuff that we actually want, like immigration and stuff like that. Like the conservatives, they don't want to get rid of mass immigration. They just want to get rid of illegal immigration, because they're still going to be able to make, billions in profits off of temporary foreign workers. That's why Trump is for H-1B visas. Americans are too stupid to basically ever be trained to, work in their own factories like they used to. Even Laura Ingraham, who I'm not a fan of, once in a while she knocks one out of the park. And I was like, well, how did we do it before? Oh, well, you can't train an American to, Americans are not smart enough and talented enough to be trained to build their own weapons and their own automotive and and only third worlders can do this because they're underpaid, right? That is what Trump is trying to sell the American people. That really pissed off MAGA. Next to the Epstein stuff, like, that really pissed off the MAGA people a lot. But the farmers, guys, it's the farmers. Trump is attacking the food supply. And I know there's a lot of people that, Reg, you're wrong. Trump is great. He's doing everything for the farmers. You're missing this. You're missing that. No, I'm not missing those things. It's just, I can only cover so much in a day. You can't not know what Trump's up to if you're just paying attention, okay? And you listen to all sides, which I do. Even the people I don't like, I listen to. Because sometimes they're right. The people I listen to the most, if you want, well, it comes down to anything. You want to know the most, go to the horse's mouth. What is Trump up to today? Let's go see. What's he tweeting about today? He says this, says that, okay. So he'll never take responsibility for himself and the chaos that he's sowing. He will not do that. It's just something he's not capable of doing. It's a psychopathic trait, a narcissistic trait. We know he's a narcissist. Carney's a narcissist too. I mean, the man steals fucking donuts from people. I still can't get over that, guys. But what I'm also getting at is that even with that, like, Carney's not suicidal. Trump is suicidal here. To take over Canada, we have to destroy Canada. So he's not going to get his way. And us Canadians, we keep standing up to, I get it. There's those on the right that are just like, they want to capitulate to Trump because they hate Carney. I understand that. Why can't we make a deal? It's not, okay, can we get a good deal? Can we get a great deal? No, it's not that. And what deal does Trump actually want? Well, this is the thing. There's not much in writing, but what has come in writing this week is very terrifying because what it means. It could mean the end of USMCA CUSMA, which in itself is not a bad idea if you're going to slowly phase it out. What Trump is talking about is ripping the bandage off and collapsing both economies. And I know the Americans, like your libertarian types, like say Sticks, Hex, and Hammers, I'm not calling him out, but he's been going on about this, that Canada's a nothing burger. I like Canadians, but look, we only do 2% trade with you. It's hardly even worth mentioning. That won't phase our economy at all. And guys like him don't understand. It's not the 2% that you're looking at the dollars and cents. If it was just about dollars and cents, you would be correct. Canada would be destroyed if we lost 50% of our trade with the United States. Right? We've already lost about 6.6% trade with the United States since the last time I looked. I don't know what it's up to now. But Carney's made up 24% trade to compensate for that. Sure, Canadian industries, particularly in steel, aluminum, yes, we lost 1,000 jobs just before Christmas in the aluminum sector and steel sector. The steel company, anyway, that just took massive hits. Everybody's focusing on that. Yes, but we gained 56,000 jobs. The Americans just lost about 35,000 jobs, last month, and no gains. You know what I mean? No gains anywhere. So us, we're doing this. The Americans are just doing this, right? And the pro-Trump people won't tell you that. You need to know that your economy is taking a fucking swan dive. The only saving grace, and you talk to anybody that's for them or against them, that the only saving grace for the American economy right now is just that it's the biggest one in the world. So it's going to take the longest to fall. But what guys like Sticks don't get, and again, once you understand that I'm not lying to you and I'm right, and I'm not saying I'm right and everybody else is wrong, I'm saying, guys, just look at the bigger picture, connect the dots. How often am I wrong? Yes, I get things wrong because the information is so skewed on both sides, it's hard to tell what's going on. But when you get it from the horse's mouth and you get it in writing and you get the policy and you get all that and you're like, okay, this 2 + 2 is always going to equal 4. And when 4 is the bad number, you guys need to brace for that. And that's all I'm doing is warning you guys. Trump is the bad guy. Carney's a bad guy too. I get that. But Carney is not trying to kill Canadians yet. And I mean, yes, he's doing dumb stuff, the gun buybacks, the Muslim values, or Canadian values. Again, there's so much I disagree with. Bill C9 going after, again, more secularism to destroy, again. So yeah, he's starting to pick up some of the Trudeau radicalness a bit. But for the most part, he's stomping out the Trudeau radicals. He's already fired people in his cabinet twice or shuffled them away to get rid of the radical. Getting rid of Stéphane Guilbeault, I don't think anybody in the center or the right would say that was a bad thing. No, good fucking riddance. That guy is a cretin on society. Right? Get rid of him. So Carney is showing that he's at least willing to open for business. He's got Alberta in the works of getting more pipelines, getting more stuff. He's doing trade or attempting to do trade around the world. Trump is not doing 90 deals in 90 days. It seems to be Carney. I'm not sure if he's got 90 on the go, but at the rate he's going at next year, he's probably going to have about 500 trade deals on the go all at once. It might take 4 or 5 years before they're all. But we see the fruits and labors of that. But at least the stepping stone's there to decouple from the United States. Because of that 2%, that 2% will kill more Americans than cutting off 50% of Canada's economy. In the short run, Canada will collapse. There's no doubt about that. And Trump will say, okay, now you're going to become the 51st state, or else we're going to keep the pressure on. No, that'll just be like, fuck you, make me. You're going to see trucker convoys right at the American border going, Hong Kong, fuck you, make me. You know what I mean? Why? Because it's Canada, like betraying Canadians that way is like we're the nicest people. We love Americans and stuff like that, but we're not going to tolerate that. Like that is betrayal for Canada has been betrayed for at least the next 30 to 50 years by Trump's policies. We will never trust you guys again. We can't. It's impossible because it's like half of the way most Canadians are looking at it is half of America voted for Trump. Trump was supposed to be the good guy. I get it. Yes, if I was an American, I would have voted for him too. Not because I thought he was going to save the day, but the alternative at the time was perceived to be worse. There's no way Kamala Harris could be worse than Trump at this point. She would have not have done the fucking blanket. Like she'd be bad. Don't get me wrong, but she'd be just like a carry-on of Biden 2.0. Biden was bad. He was one of the worst presidents you ever had. One of the worst. Again, by every metric, yes, the Biden economy was fucking horrible. And his policies, again, the woke stuff, all bad. Totally against it. I'm on board with you. But Trump is killing you. He's going to kill you. He is going to starve you to death. And then take you to war everywhere on top of that. I'm like, that's not what MAGA voted for. They did not vote for that. Now, all the people on the left saying, well, you got what you wanted. How, are you happy now because it's hurting you guys the most? No, the MAGA people, most of them are good, decent people. They did not vote for starvation. They did not vote for going to war with their number one client, customer, trade partner, friend. They didn't vote for that. They didn't vote for supplying more weapons well, some of them did, but the Zionist faction is unfortunately very huge in the States, but Israel's genocide of the Gazans. They didn't vote for let's go to war with fucking Venezuela and bomb the shit out of Iran. Let's spend $80 billion basically dropping 7 bombs on fucking Iran. Like that, you can't even make that up. Like that is fucking ridiculous. And you want to fight a long war with Russia? Like, yeah, there'd be no fathomable name for the number of what that would cost, because we don't even understand what $1 trillion is, let alone the $4 quadrillion of debt around the world that is held because of these fucking banksters, right? We don't even understand that, let alone what numbers above a quadrillion. you know what I mean? Like that's what it's what it comes down to is it's the Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 stuff where they want to cut the populations in half. Klaus Schwab said it very clear. The world's going to be riddled in all these little conflicts, and we're going to see depopulation through that. This is the globalist plan. Trump is in on it. Now, is Carney in on it? Of course. Why do you think we're beefing up our military? Because we're going to be in on it. But I don't know if Carney's in on it the same way the other mob boss is in on it. I think because Carney is a greedy bastard, right? He cares about his portfolios and donors the same way Trump does, but the difference is he understands banking and finance and the economy way better than Trump. And he also understands how to kiss ass so that he can be the king dog on Trump. Like he sees the damage that Trump is self-inflicting on the Americans. He's like, I can capitalize on this. The fuck Trump economy is making us money, right? Boycotts, stuff like that. The fact that around the world, the Americans have lost they're at about 2023 levels of trade, but they've lost about 24 to 25% of trade. So you're not going to notice it till about mid-2026 of the shortages that are going to be coming to the States, right? And the thing is people aren't flooding into the States to build businesses and stuff like that, like Trump was talking about. But all kinds of partnerships are coming up with Canada. Now, Canada will probably have a Nordic alliance because, and I know those out there say, yeah, but Reg, Trump is just making these threats to get everybody's, a fire under everybody's arse so that you get, the Nordic, like the Nordic alliance so that they take care of their fair share of the Russians and NATO pays its fair share and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, let's examine this. If it were true, okay, mission accomplished. People are funding their militaries. They're taking more, the Russian threat more seriously. But what you don't do is try to find ways to shut down NORAD. You don't find ways to, steal the Northwest Passage or the Great Water. Threaten to basically take out. You don't threaten war against your number one ally. You don't do that. You don't threaten to take over Greenland. You don't threaten to do that stuff. You do other things. You just don't do it that way. But it's his negotiating tactic. No, what people see is a man that is about to attack Venezuela. Once he attacks Venezuela, any threat that comes from the Trump administration at that point will be taken seriously anywhere in the world. This will isolate Americans. No, you will not make it up domestically. You do not have enough of everything, even if you have it, to offset that. And even if you could, you're looking at 5 to 10 years to rebuild refineries and stuff. That stuff Trump is not even trying to build. He's not even trying to build. He's not building industries because his philosophy is the capitalist philosophy. Basically, I will destroy this market for the Canadians and other people so they can't do business here. And in return, people are going to say, I'm going to come in and take this great tax rate and I will build it here in the States because I'm going to get such a great tax break. No one's doing that. Why? Because we're not going to be, no business is going to go where you have instability. Trump is unstable. Why? Because yes, he makes a deal with you today, but he's going to backstab you tomorrow and move the goalposts, right? The Americans cannot be trusted to make deals with. They can't be, and that is going to take 30 to 50 years to get that trust back. This is the number one betrayal of the United States that Trump has done, is betraying the American reputation. It is not a reliable trade partner with anybody, let alone us. Canada is looked at probably the top trade partner in the world. You make a deal with Canada, no problem. Now, as we diversify trade, okay, what countries around the world are saying, well, if we make this trade deal with Canada and they get a new president down there in the States, should we make this deal? Because Canada might just switch back to the States because, the convenience between the trades between the two countries, right? And like I said, that trade, once you cut it off, that's it. Like, if the United States cuts off that 2% trade that they're doing with us, which is critical stuff. Canada's mostly buying junk from you guys, some critical stuff. It will hurt both economies. We'll lose about half of our economy in it. You will lose about 20 to 30% of your economy or more if we cut off the hydro, or you guys cut off the hydro. And this is what CUSMA could end up doing, is by unintended consequences saying, well, because we can't comply with CUSMA, okay, and it's been shut down, well, we have no trade deal to do business in electricity, in gas, in oil, in potash. Meaning we have it for you to buy, but we can't legally sell it to you because you've shut us off. In other words, you could be shooting yourself not only in your own face, but while you fall down a cliff. You know what I mean? Like, it's the dumbest trade war in human history. And Trump's response will be, well, Canada's fucking us over because they've shut off our hydro, they shut off our electricity, they shut off the gas, the oil, and the potash, and they're trying to starve us out. And it's like, no, but you got rid of the deal. We can't do, by your own laws, we cannot do business with you. So what Trump is looking for is a reason to invade Canada. So as Gerald Celente said, it's currency war, trade war, shooting war. Why does the Americans want to go to war with us? 80% of Americans don't. The other 18% are like, well, if Canada wants to become a part of the United States willingly, we'd be more than loved to have them because they're brothers from a different mother. And the other 2% are like, yeah, fuck you, let's invade Canada because Canada's fucking us over. Remember, Trump said this, but every deal where he says we're fucking you over, and you look at the deal for what it is, there might be things you might bicker back and forth on. The big one that everybody goes on is about the dairy supply management. Now, what Trump is saying, and again, there's nothing in writing about what he actually wants. This is why you can't negotiate with the man. You don't even really know what he wants. But what he's saying is open all your markets to us, drop any trade barriers you would have, and basically let us 100% conquer every one of your markets. Open up your dairy to ours to the point where we can put your farmers out of work. They're bad enough amongst themselves. We don't want U.S. style farming up in Canada as much as possible. Even those that think they want that, because my free market capitalism is going to make me so much money. You're going to be put out by the big tyrants, Monsanto and all these grain distributors and stuff like that. They are going to decide your price, not you, and you will lose. You will be listen to the American farmers. They're losing $300 to $400 a crop in losses because of the extra input costs from Trump's trade war. Oh, but it's going to be a little bit of pain. Yeah, but you don't get a little bit of pain from food shortages. You get starvation. And again, I can't make this. I know I sound hyperbolic. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm saying the farmers are shit scared. Listen to them. What I can't tell you, okay, maybe you're lucky and it's being blown out of proportion and it's like 18 farmers that are really loud saying, we're dying, and whatever. But even Trump himself is telling you that last year you had a record amount of farmers closing. Now, how much of that is Joe Biden's fault? How much of that is the hurricane's fault? Trump blames everything on Biden no matter what. And yes, he's right on a lot of stuff. Biden was horrible for the economy. Biden was horrible for the farmers. So was everybody else. Obama was horrible with the farmers. With the BLM landmass stuff, land management, all that. That's what it's all about. These big corporations getting monopoly over everything. But they can't take monopoly overnight, right? So that means food shortages, people starving. So starting the year with a lack of farmers to begin with, then add on farmers that had most of their pickers run away. You can say what you want about the illegals, but it's still an attack on the food supply. Yes, the illegals need to go. Yes, you can take domestic people. Okay, people on the food SNAP program, maybe get them out into the fields working. They don't want to work, they don't eat. Fine, do that. Phase it in. Take a couple of years to phase it in. And in 10 years, anybody on welfare that's able-bodied doesn't just sit on welfare. They're out there working the fields, which will do them so fucking good anyway. Even if they might not like it at first, they're going to love it after once they get a sense of purpose. And again, I know people that work on farms all the time. Most people that work on farms, they love doing it. It's hard work. It's brutal work, but they love doing it. Like once you work outside all the time, like an office job just becomes an impossibility for you. Yes, in the wintertime, sure, I'd rather work inside, mopping the school floor and stuff like that. I like that. I don't want to be out there, working my chainsaw on -40. Of course not. But that said, there's something about working outside that is like all summer, even when it's really hot or whatever. There's just something about it that you feel so refreshed when you finally come in at the end of the day. You feel accomplished. You're not depressed. You're not stagnant because you're just sitting there all day bored looking at a computer screen. No, it's... and if you're working on a farm, you're working around animals. Trust me, I love working around animals. Goats, pigs, horses, whatever. Okay, I'm not the biggest horse guy, but there's something fun about, like, for example, when my clients had chickens and goats, right? Loved it. You talk to the goats are, and you just start bleating at them. They start bleating back. It's hilarious. It's like it's the most enjoyable, even if it's hard work. You know what I mean? It's enjoyable. So what I'm getting at is that these people are being destroyed, right? And they're telling you they're being destroyed. It's just to what percentage. So how many farmers are going to lose their farms this year, which means all the devastation that you started with from the Biden administration, from the hurricane, shortages of farms, to all these 2025 farmers, their entire season of losing workers, which many of them probably haven't replenished. So you've got picker shortage there. Even if you had bumper crops, half the crops are going to be rotting. So how many of those farms just wrote off their crops and burnt their crops? I don't know that yet. We can't find it out. The information is kind of hidden. Trump, the Trump administration, okay, he's done bad things, and you have a government shutdown that I think is still going on. I'm not sure. But you don't have the data anyway. You're going to have a 2-month, 3-month lag in data. but you won't need that data when you see the empty shelves. You know what I mean? You're not going to need that data. You're going to know. You're going to know. Fuck, Reg was right. And I hate to say that I'm going to be probably about 90 to 95% accurate on this one. Guys, that if you followed my old channel, look at how many things I've called, just over the years. And I'm almost always right. And I always get the same thing. Reg, you're crazy. You're wrong, blah, blah, blah. You don't understand. It's a 5D chess move. Trump is the smart guy. He's our guy. You just don't understand. The white hats are coming. There's going to be arrests. It's just like, I can't save you guys. I can't. I'm not bashing on you. I'm saying you need to listen to me. If I'm wrong, you guys can come back, and I pray that I am. You guys get to come back, see, Reg, it was a nothing burger. You over-exaggerated, whatever. Your information was wrong. The farmers were lying, or you were just listening to the wrong farmers. But guys, it's farmer after farmer after farmer after farmer. You got farmers in Canada complaining about the poor bastards in the United States. Like, it's everywhere. You know, I was listening to one guy last night, again, an anti-Trumper. So again, you gotta kind of wade through that too, like Trump is bad. And I understand that's how I sound right now. But I'm warning you it's not what he says, it's what he's done, right? And this guy's like, oh yeah, they want to, put like a 50% tariff on potash. Yeah, do it. Yeah, go ahead. Fuck around, find out. Go ahead. It won't hurt us up here in Canada. It might hurt the sales a bit, but we're finding other markets. And once that potash is now, that 80% of that potash that we're selling to the United States, if we start selling that around the world, we're never going to be selling that to you again. Why? Because when we make a deal in Canada, a deal's a deal. We're not going to backstab partners out, like overseas just to say, oh, okay, well, we're friends now. Sorry, guys, that deal's off. We're not going to do that. You lose that trade, you're not going to get it back. That 2% is included. That potash, that 80% of your fucking food's fertilizer is included in that 2%. Just that one thing alone. Every analyst on the left, on the right, that is, sensible has said the same thing. Do not attack that. You can go after the gas, the oil to a degree. You can go after, and that's bad enough. The farming diesel is astronomical. Diesel affects everything. Every piece of farm equipment has a tariff on it, pretty much, right? Again, but the potash, that is your food supply. 80% of your food is affected by this potash. If you wipe out those farmers, you don't eat. Can I make it any simpler? And you say, I disagree with Reg. Well, Trump is not. Trump is telling you this is what he's going to do. He is telling you this is, again, will he pull through? Again, if he does this thing and makes everything an international, we have to basically destroy every trade deal that we have because national security, right? Canada is a hostile nation. That's the language. So that means you start calling people a hostile nation. What happens to that? You're going to go to war with that country. Never happened. And the Ukrainians were in disbelief to the point where there was people saying there is no Russian invasion. It's all propaganda, blah, blah, blah. They just want you to think. Yeah, I think we know now all those, 5D chess people that were out there, whether they were in the United States or Ukraine, saying that, the Russian invasion isn't happening. That's just propaganda. Well, it's kind of happened. Oh, there's no war. There's no war going on. It's just all theater. I think it's pretty provable, at this point. You know what I mean? I'm not saying they wouldn't try a hoax, but anyway. So next to that, yeah, that's where we're at. It's scary. I told you guys 2025, like every year I tell you guys the same thing. It's going to be worse than the previous year, more chaotic. The news cycle is going to travel so fast you can't follow it all. I can't. Nobody can. But what I'm going to tell you about the Black Christmas is here. From Christmas on, things get really nasty. Really, really fucking nasty. And from February on, there will be no doubt whether we have a food shortage or not. You will have inflation no matter what, but the food shortages in the States, there's no way Trump's going to be able to hide this. So the question is how does he spin it when you can't blame it on Joe Biden anymore, when every farmer's saying it's fucking Trump that's destroying my farm because of the input costs. We're losing $300 to $400 per crop, eventually putting farmers into, again, what was Bill Gates and Trump talking about right after he got elected? This is probably the plan they came up with. Okay, we'll get the input costs so high on the farmers, they'll all go out and then you can buy up the rest of the land so China doesn't buy it out. And okay, so it's like, yeah, fuck the little guy. We're going to destroy generational farms for capitalism so that the too big to fails can control it all. That is beyond evil. But you're going to take a little pain. That pain is going to be a very empty stomach. I am terrified what's coming. If I'm right, even 1% on this, you're talking thousands dead. Thousands. I'm probably going to be 92 to 95% accurate on this one, guys. God help us. God help us. It's going to hit the world. A food shortage in the United States starves the third world first. We are about to see the global famine that's going to wipe out about what I said back in 2020. In the next 2 to 4 years, you will see the death of about, or the starvation of about 2 to 4 billion people. We were at about 1.3 billion about last year. So we're over the 2 billion starving around the world. We're now about to see 4 to 6 billion people starve to death around the world. We're about to see that. It will hinge on the collapse of the United States. The globalists love this. Oh, it's the Leninist. When Lenin basically wrote in his memoirs, 20 million Russians starved to death. Oh, well, we got rid of all the useless eaters. This will be great for our economy. That's the way Trump is looking at it. Even if he's not a communist, he's a capitalist that looks at it that way. The same way, like all the medical systems are going privatized, so they can just kill people, put them on drugs until they die. That's it. It's not about helping people. That's what doctor-assisted suicide with the UN Agenda 2030, UN Agenda 2030, die with dignity by 75 that the UN wants. That's what it's all about, is depopulation. We got to do depopulation while we're repopulating the third world from a capitalism. And that's what it's about. Trump is in on it. It's very clear he's in on it. He said so much, he's done so much that I don't see a way out of this. The only way out is through. The only way through is prepared. That's it. And it's going to be nasty no matter which way we go. So I don't know when he's going to kick off the Canada-US war. It's going to be horrible. Yes, we will lose about 150 million Americans over the next 30 years in this war. We'll lose all but probably 4 to 8 million Canadians. Then right after that, we'll probably go to war with the Chinese in about 20 to 50 years. They'll lose, but they have to attack Taiwan first. So, again, this stuff is very... I know there's a lot of information I don't tell you guys about because it's like I have to wait. I got to do a lot of hurry up and wait to get stuff. But these are the dots that are connecting. This is where we go. The United States is going to be the pariah of the world, and right after that, China will be the pariah of the world in the most devastating way. By 2050, there's going to be about 500 million people left on this planet at best, through all the famine and the war and stuff like that. And it will be done by the Americans until the Americans get completely wiped out, and then, half wiped out, and then at that point, it's just like, whatever's left of the United States is going to break up into like little, tribal nations, nation states. There'll be probably 75, 100 of them, whatever. China will try to buy them out, but they'll be too poor from their devastating collapse as well. And once China attacks Taiwan, they're never going to recover from this. Even with the rise of what I call the Black Dragon. That person will be like Saddam Hussein meets Mao, meets Stalin, meets Hitler, meets Fidel Castro, and Genghis Khan all in one. It will be expansionism Napoleonic style expansionism from the Chinese, but with like this just disastrous effects and whatever. They'll mainly, believe it or not, well, the Chinese are probably mainly going to go after Africa. The exact reasons why, I'm not sure why yet. That's where it's going to land. That's where it's going to land. Now, Canada, what does Canada become? Well, Canada is going to become a third of the United States. We're going to get Alaska. We're going to get most of the northern United States. But the same thing, it's probably going to break up into about 4 or 5 territories. And like for the next 150 years, disputed new provinces or whatever. It may or may not be called Canada. It might be called the Canadian Republic. It might be called the Western Republic. It might be called the Eastern Western Republic. It could be Rupert's Land 2.0. I don't know what it's going to be called. But what it'll phase into is enclaves of tribalism. It will be mainly made up of old stock Canadians. There won't be very many native groups left, but there'll be a few because they're going to starve to death too in the war, right? Because they're going to isolate themselves, fighting the white man. So French Indian Wars 2.0. It'll look like that. That's what the U.S. Canadian War is going to look like. French Indian Wars 2.0. Some natives are going to be on the side of the Canadian government. Some will be on the side of the American government. Some will be fighting against. Some will be fighting against everybody. And native tribes will go to war with each other as well. Again, just a rehashing or continuation of the first 250 years of Canada. So I know that sounds crazy, and I know that's nobody believes me until they see it. I get that, but within the next 2 to 4 years, there's going to be no doubt that the United States is gearing up for a war with us. But within the 4th year, we'll be ready for it. Most likely through drone warfare, anti-tank and shoulder-fired weapons predominantly. We'll have so much that it's probably going to be. It might even get to the point, and I know this is going to be a long shot, hard to believe, but Carney might just say, okay, no more gun laws. Everybody can have a gun because we have to defend against the Americans. The fuck Trump economy is going to have weird and strange, things coming off of this. That one's a long shot yet, but I do believe the Carney's probably going to kick the gun buyback thing down the road just because it's going to be so unfeasible with the tensions so high between Canada and the United States. Trump is about to ratify. Again, we have to see what, watch for Trump destroying weapons deals with Canada, right? There's a lot of dirty stuff going on. Like, for example, the aid going to Ukraine is basically, Carney basically gave an American company money to build artillery shells for the Ukrainians because they got the capacity to do it. But within, say, the next 2 to 3 years, Canada might be taking that business away from the United States because we're competing with them now. And we don't have the industry there to do it. So it takes, like I say, 2 to 4 years before we're going to see the benefits of this. But once we start making our own artillery shells, watch out, and drones and stuff like that. We're already doing the drones. Sea Scepter missiles are going to be like on every shoreline of Canada, all over the place and whatever. So that's what we're up against. That's what we got to watch out for. Trump is firing off in all directions. The big caveat, the kickoff to all this will be the American Black Christmas with massive, the February food shortage. Most likely, at best, it'll be Canada will be kicked down the road by cutting off the foreign aid first. People will notice that and they'll be asking, well, why aren't we selling food aid giving food aid to the Africans? Well, it'll be like, because they're parasites and whatever. They'll just blame it on racism. But what they won't tell you and what the farmers will be saying, no, it's because we can't supply it. It's not about racism and the cultural war. It's about we don't have enough food. We lost half our farmers in 1 year on top of all the other chaos that's been going on for decades. This is just unfucking believable what is manifesting. And people say, that'll never happen. That'll never happen. Pick up a history book, guys. Henry Kissinger, hopefully burning in hell, said it best. Control the food, control the people. That's what we're up against. That's what the globalists have planned for us. Unbelievable. Anyway, there we go.